Ororo Munroe, also known as Storm, is a descendant of an ancient line of African priestesses, who have characteristic white hair, blue eyes, and the ability to exercise magic. Ororo was the product of the love of Ndare, a princess from a tribe in Kenya, and the journalist David Munro. They both decided to live in Manhattan, where Ororo was born. When Ororo was 6 months old, she and her parents moved to Cairo. She lived there for 5 years until her home was destroyed in a plane crash. Ororo's parents were killed, but she survived, buried under rubble near her mother's body. This traumatizing experience made Ororo claustrophobic. Ororo managed to escape the rubble of her shattered home with her mother's ancestral ruby. After being orphaned, Ororo was recruited by some child thieves led by Ahmed El-Jibar. He trained Ororo in the arts of theft, and she soon became his protégé. Sometime later, Ororo robbed a tourist who turned out to be Charles Xavier, who used his powers to stop the girl. At that time, Xavier was attacked by another mutant, Amal Farouk, the ruler of the Cairo underworld, and Ororo took the opportunity to escape. Charles let her escape, as he discovered that the girl had powers, but she didn't know it yet and he didn't want to overwhelm her with this information. During her travels, Ororo naively accepted a ride from a complete stranger and was almost raped by him. Forced to defend herself, Ororo killed the man and, from that moment on, swore never to take a human life again. Ororo wandered thousands of miles and almost died during his journey through the Sahara Desert. Ororo's mutant ability to psionically control the weather emerged soon after, and she was able to use it to rescue T'Challa, the prince of Wakanda who had been kidnapped by men. The couple shared a romance and spent a lot of time together. However, T'Challa's duties as a prince prevented them from continuing their relationship. Eventually, Ororo reached the homeland of his ancestors, the Kilimanjaro Valley on the Serengeti Plain in Kenya. Ororo was taken in by a tribal elder named Inet, who helped her control her powers. Ororo soon became an object of worship by local tribes, who believed her to be a goddess due to her ability to control the weather. Years later, Ororo found herself in the savage land and was forced to fight the villain Deluge, who wanted to use Ororo's powers to destroy humanity. With the help of the X-Men, Ororo managed to defeat him and return to his life in the tribal villages. Sometime later, the X-Men were captured and Professor X recruited Ororo and other mutants to save the heroes. After saving the original X-Men, Storm, Nightcrawlers, Colossus, Wolverine, Thunderbird and Banshee formed a new version of the team. At first, Storm was very naive when it came to the customs of the modern world, but Jean Grey helped her adjust and the two formed a strong friendship. After serving on the team for many years, Storm was named team leader following Cyclops' departure following Jean's supposed death. Storm was unsure of her new role, but, with the support of her teammates, she soon became a capable leader. When Cyclops finally returned to the team, Storm found herself doubting her leadership abilities once again, after a mission she led went awry. However, Ororo soon asserted her position, reminding Cyclops that she was now the leader of the team. Archon, a being from another dimension, recruited the X-Men and the Fantastic Four to help him in his fight against the villain Badoon. Storm fell in love with him, but they both decided to leave their relationship, as they both had more important responsibilities. Shortly after, the X-Men encountered the underground community of mutants, known as the Morlocks, who had kidnapped Angel. To save him, Storm challenged the Morlock leader, Callisto, to a duel and bested her in hand-to-hand combat. As a result, Storm became leader of the Morlocks and ordered them to cease their hostilities against the surface-dwelling humans. After this, the X-Men traveled to Japan for Logan's wedding. Storm met the ninja named Yukio, who was a friend of Wolverine. Yukio influenced a major rebellious change in Storm's attitude towards life and she decided to alter her appearance to reflect this change. Storm lost her powers due to a weapon invented by Forge. He felt guilty and took care of Storm until she fully recovered. The two eventually fell in love, but their relationship was cut short after Storm learned that Forge had created the device that stripped her of her powers. After accepting the loss of her powers, Storm decided to return to Africa. She would return some time later to join the new mutants. Later, while on vacation with the children, Loki approached Storm to use her on one of his planes to discredit Thor. The villain gave her the Stormcaster hammer, which restored Storm's powers, turning her into the new goddess of thunder. This power came with a price, so Ororo decided to return the hammer, thus foiling Loki's plan. After several fights alongside the X-Men, Storm decided it was time to regain her powers and sought out Forge for help. Instead, Ororo found Forge's former mentor, Naze, who informed him that Forge had been corrupted by his enemy, the adversary, and sought to destroy the world. Unknown to Storm, the adversary had actually corrupted Naze. Storm eventually located Forge on a mountaintop, apparently opening a dimensional portal filled with demons. Storm stabbed Forge in the chest, but then realized that he had been trying to close the portal, not open it. The adversary then trapped Storm and Forge in the other dimension and took control of Dallas, warping time and space to foment chaos on Earth. Storm and Forge spent a year on an alternate Earth, during which time they made peace and admitted their love for each other. Forge used components from his cybernetic leg to create a new device that restored Storm's ability to use her powers, which he then used to activate a portal back to his own world. With the help of the X-Men, they managed to defeat the adversary. Shortly after, the X-Men were ambushed at their hideout by the crazed scientist known as Nanny and her partner, Orphan Maker. The two kidnapped Storm and attempted to use her abilities for evil. Nanny used her technology to de-age Storm back to her teens and strip her of her memories. Ororo managed to stop the villain, but she lost her memories as a member of the X-Men. Young Storm returned to her life as a thief. This was found by Shadow King, but was saved by Gambit. The two teamed up, and after Storm regained her memories, she took Gambit to meet the X-Men. Storm eventually returned to adulthood after the X-Men were captured by Genosha agents using mutants as slaves. Thanks to a rebel faction from Genosha, Storm regained her normal age and, together with her companions, defeated her attackers. After this, the X-Men and X-Factor joined forces, and their members formed two new teams. One led by Cyclops and one led by Storm. Emma Frost enlisted the help of the X-Men to stop time-traveling criminal Trevor Fitzroy. During the battle, Jean Grey was killed in battle. The professor revealed to Ororo that Jean's psyche had survived inside Emma Frost, but she had been kidnapped by Fitzroy. Bishop, who traveled from the future, helped the X-Men defeat him. After this, the professor agreed for him to join the X-Men under Storm's tutelage. Forge, who began to feel that his relationship with Ororo was deteriorating, proposed to his beloved. However, his doubts about Storm's feelings worked against him and he decided to leave the X-Men before receiving an answer. The villain Destiny wrote some books where she prophesied the tragic fate of mutants. Charles did not disagree with those prophecies, but Storm, fearing that they would come true, gathered a new group of X-Men to search for the lost volumes. During their first mission, Psylocke and Beast were killed. Still mourning their losses while searching for the Fate Diaries, the X-Men learned that Gambit had been accused of murdering Australian crime boss Viceroy. After being cleared of the charges, Gambit revealed that he was trying to protect the ruby from Storm's mother, as he had learned that it was part of the legendary Madripoor gem set. In her subsequent adventure, Storm was seriously injured and had to use a wheelchair for a time. After this, Jean asked his friends to return to the Xavier Institute, but Ororo refused as he believed that they should go beyond the professor's guidelines in order to save the world. During a world summit organized by Val Cooper to address the growing hostilities between humans and mutants, Storm and Gambit surreptitiously attempted to influence its outcome. Attracting the attention of different politicians and government agents, Storm shared her intentions to protect mutants from unfair institutional processing and offered her X-Men services to the United Nations as a global mutant police force, a proposal which was approved. Storm and his XSE faced many different opponents. Unexpectedly, the Civil Guard informed Storm about Psylocke's resurrection at the site of her death. Following reports of mutant animals appearing in Naganda, the X-Men went to investigate. Storm personally interacted with the locals to retrieve information and eventually encountered Black Panther. Together, they fought against Drive. Eric Payne, who was behind the animal experiments. With Payne defeated and their plans thwarted, the X-Men returned home, but Storm decided to stay in Africa to reconnect with her past and help people in need. By sharing a passionate kiss with Black Panther, he predicted that their paths might cross again. They both got married some time later. Charles introduced himself and told Storm that as Queen of Wakanda, she was now the world's greatest mutant and the living symbol of human-mutant relations. Several months later, Captain America invited Black Panther to return to the Avengers, but he refused and recommended Storm to take his place. Unfortunately, Ororo and T'Challa's marriage ended when a Namor under the influence of the Phoenix Force attacked Wakanda, so the nation rejected the mutants and Black Panther had no choice but to divorce Storm. After the death of Charles Xavier, Logan decided to open a school for mutants. He hired Storm to be a teacher, but she eventually became the principal. After Wolverine's death, Storm became the sole leader of the X-Men. She led a fight against the Inhumans after they released the Terrigen Mist throughout the Earth, which was killing all mutants. The Inhumans and the X-Men finally came to an understanding and the cloud was destroyed by the Inhuman Queen Medusa. When Ororo's adoptive mother, Inet, was prosecuted by worshippers of a new god who denounced Ororo's divinity, she prayed to the old gods to give her daughter the power of divinity. Before he died, his call was answered by the Stormcaster, which lay dormant in Asgard. The mystical hammer awoke and sought out Storm in the middle of one of her adventures with the X-Men, and once again became the goddess of thunder. After learning of Ainet's death shortly after, Ororo traveled to Kenya and confronted the new Dark God. Storm used Stormcaster one last time to face Uovu in a battle for divinity. She defeated the Dark God, causing Stormcaster to turn to dust. When the resurrected Professor X founded the mutant nation of Krakoa, Storm helped Charles carry out his plan. She helped build portals in the X-Mansion so that mutants could travel to this new nation. This became part of the Silent Council, the leaders of the nation. As a powerhouse of the Marauders, Storm went on several adventures to rescue mutants around the world. After helping the Shi'ar find their Empress, they felt indebted to the mutants. Storm convinced the Council to allow the town of Arco, which had been razed to the ground, to be taken to Mars to build a new home. With the help of other Omega-level mutants, Storm managed to make that planet habitable. She eventually became the regent of Araco. Unfortunately, with the arrival of Thallo FX, everything seems to indicate that Araco and Krakoa have fallen and the mutants will once again be rejected. Still, Storm will not give in and will continue fighting to make mutants accepted by humans.